The white rose petals scattered across the manicured lawn seemed to tremble as the distant sound of helicopter blades cut through the string quartet's melody. 300 guests in their finest attire turned from the flower-adorned altar toward the sound. Ethan Hayes, heir to one of the country's largest pharmaceutical empires, stood frozen at the altar. "Who's that?" His bride? Chloe clutched his arm, her diamond bracelet digging into his skin. But Ethan couldn't answer. The breath had left his body as the helicopter door opened and a woman in a tailored white suit stepped out, her caramel hair dancing in the wind from the slowing rotors. Then two small figures emerged behind her, twins, a boy and girl no older than 6, each holding one of her hands as they walked with practiced confidence toward the wedding ceremony. Ethan's mother gasped audibly. Anyone could see it. The children had Ethan's eyes. 6 years earlier, Ethan and Isabella Rossi were the definition of a power couple. He was the brilliant heir to Hayes Pharma. She, a biochemist whose research had already saved countless lives. Their wedding had been the social event of the season, with their vows exchanged in the same garden where Ethan now stood with another woman. Their marriage seemed perfect, passionate, supportive, and built on mutual respect. They traveled the world together, donated millions to charity, and were preparing to start a family. Behind the scenes, though, storm clouds were gathering. Ethan's childhood friend, Marcus Bell, had joined Hayes Pharma as CFO, bringing his sister Chloe into their social circle. What no one knew was how these two siblings would systematically destroy everything Ethan and Isabella had built. Before we continue the story, let us know where you're watching from. The Hayes estate glittered under the evening lights as waitstaff in crisp uniforms circulated through the annual charity gala. Ethan watched his wife across the crowded ballroom, admiring how Isabella commanded attention in her emerald gown as she discussed her latest research with the health minister. 6 years of marriage had only deepened his attraction to her brilliant mind and kind heart. "She's quite something," Marcus said, appearing beside Ethan with 2 whiskeys. "You're a lucky man." Ethan accepted the drink with a smile. "Don't I know it? The clinical trials on her cancer treatment protocol are showing incredible results." The board's thrilled. Marcus nodded, his eyes following Isabella as she laughed at something Chloe said. "Must be nice having beauty and brains under one roof. We're trying for a baby. You know," Ethan confided, the whiskey loosening his usual reserve. "Isabella's been tracking everything. Says the timing is perfect this month." Marcus's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Fatherhood? Huh. That'll change everything." Later that night, Isabella stepped out of their ensuite bathroom to find Ethan sitting on the edge of their bed, her phone in his hand. His face was unrecognizable, contorted with rage and betrayal. "Ethan, what are you doing with my phone? Who is Ryan?" His voice was dangerously quiet. Isabella's brow furrowed in confusion. "Ryan? I don't know any, don't lie to me." He thrust the phone at her, displaying text messages she'd never seen before. Intimate messages. Explicit plans for meetings. 3 months. "You've been seeing him." "In our bed. Isabella, while I was traveling for work." "Victor, I've never seen these messages before. I don't know any Ryan." Her hands trembled as she scrolled through conversations that appeared to be from her number but contained words she'd never written. His perfume was on his clothes. He knew things about our house only someone who'd been here would know. Ethan stood, running his hands through his dark hair. Marcus found him. The private investigator confirmed everything. "Marcus?" Isabella's mind raced. "Ethan, these are fake. Someone planted these messages." "I would never." The bedroom door opened, and Marcus entered without knocking. Security found these in her car. He handed Ethan a small bag containing a man's watch and a hotel key card. "I've never seen those before," Isabella cried, reaching for Ethan, who jerked away as if her touch would burn him. "Get out," Ethan whispered, then louder. Get out of my house. Please. I love you. Tears streamed down her face as Marcus signaled to security guards waiting in the hallway. I want divorce papers drafted tonight. The next moments passed in a horrific blur as security escorted Isabella from the bedroom. She begged Ethan to listen. To think logically, why would she cheat when they were trying for a baby? But rational thought had abandoned him. Watching his staff threw hastily packed suitcases into the trunk of her car. Ethan watched from the balcony, his face a stone mask, while Marcus stood beside him. The head of security informed her coldly. Mr. Rain began to fall as Isabella sat in her car. Then a third, a preliminary notice of divorce proceedings. She pulled into a 24-hour pharmacy parking lot and sat trembling under the fluorescent lights. This couldn't be happening. There had to be some explanation. Someone had set her up. And why? Her mind immediately went to Marcus's strange behavior over the past months. The subtle suggestions that she might be working too much or traveling too often. A familiar sensation from the past few mornings that she'd attributed to stress. With shaking hands, she entered the pharmacy and purchased a pregnancy test. 3 minutes later, staring at the positive result in the pharmacy's sterile bathroom. Homeless, and facing a vicious divorce orchestrated by someone she now suspected had been plotting this for months. She parked near Ethan's office building, determined to make him listen. Mr. Hayes doesn't want to see you, the guard said, uncomfortable but firm. She pleaded, please, just tell him that. The guard disappeared inside. His lawyer will contact you about a paternity test after the birth. Isabella's knees buckled at the cruelty of it. Through the glass doors, she could see Marcus watching from the lobby, his expression unreadable. That afternoon, she discovered her credit cards had been canceled. By evening, her closest friends had stopped returning her calls, all part of the same social circle as Ethan. By nightfall, she was sleeping in her car in a Walmart parking lot. But the ultrasound she would have 2 weeks later would reveal an even greater shock: twins. An elderly woman who found Isabella vomiting beside her car early one morning. Dear, Helen observed with startling directness. Either way, you need help. Helen. It was in Helen's modest home that Isabella finally found space to think clearly about what had happened and to plan her response. She pawned her wedding ring for $12, but enough for prenatal care and a used laptop. Then she began meticulously documenting everything that had occurred, creating timelines, saving what evidence she could salvage. With Chloe's help, had orchestrated her downfall. But why? What could they possibly gain? While browsing job listings at a coffee shop, Isabella overheard 2 pharmaceutical researchers discussing irregularities in Hayes Pharma's recent drug trial reports. The numbers don't add up. Ethan Hayes probably never even saw the original data. People could die, and if she had stayed, that night, she whispered to her unborn twins, "But that's okay. We're going to build something so spectacular that one day he'll realize exactly what he threw away." Morning sickness was a cruel misnomer, as she vomited for the 3rd time that afternoon. At 4 months pregnant with twins, making it nearly impossible to conceal her condition during job interviews. "I'm sorry. Dr. Rossi," the lab director said, "your qualifications are impressive." It was the same response she'd received at 5 other research facilities. Helen found her crying on the porch swing that evening. "Chin up, dear," the older woman said, lowering herself beside Isabella. "The world doesn't end because one man was too foolish to see your worth. It's not just Ethan," Isabella explained. "No one will hire me. My research experience means nothing when Marcus Bell tells them I'm unstable or dishonest." Helen considered this. "Then perhaps you need to meet people who've never heard of Marcus Bell." The next day, Helen drove Isabella to a small community clinic serving primarily low-income patients. The waiting room was packed, the staff overwhelmed. "My friend Dr. Evelyn Carter runs this place," Helen explained. "She doesn't care about pharmaceutical politics. only about helping people. Dr. Carter was a hurricane in human form, a brilliant researcher who had left a prestigious position to serve those without access to adequate health care. After a 5-minute conversation about Isabella's research background, she offered her a part-time position analyzing patient data. "I can't pay you what you're worth," Dr. Carter warned. "And I see you're expecting twins." Isabella nodded, surprised. "The way you're carrying classic twin presentation," Dr. Carter explained. "Look, this isn't glamorous work, but it's honest. And no one here will judge you for being pregnant and unmarried, if that's what you're worried about." For the first time in months, Isabella felt a flicker of hope. "When can I start?" The work was indeed unglamorous, organizing patient records, analyzing treatment outcomes, and helping streamline the clinic's protocols. But it kept Isabella's mind sharp and provided just enough income to supplement what she'd gotten from her wedding ring. At 7 months pregnant, she waddled into Dr. Carter's office with findings she couldn't ignore. "There's a pattern in these cancer patients," Isabella explained, spreading charts across the desk. "Those taking Hayes Pharma's new medication are showing liver complications at 3 times the reported rate." Dr. Carter studied the data. "This is concerning." "You're certain?" "The sample size is small, but the pattern is unmistakable," Isabella confirmed. "And it matches what I overheard about falsified trial data." Dr. Carter's expression darkened. "We should report this to the FDA." "With what proof?" Isabella sighed. "They'll say our data set is too limited. We need more evidence." "What we need," Dr. Carter said thoughtfully, "is to develop an alternative treatment. Something safer." Isabella blinked. "That would take years and millions in funding." "Not necessarily." Dr. Carter smiled mysteriously. "I have a fully equipped lab at my home. It's where I conduct my own research after hours. Perhaps it's time you saw it." Dr. Carter's home lab turned out to be a state-of-the-art facility built in what had once been a large barn on her property. "My late husband left me quite comfortable," Dr. Carter explained. "I use my inheritance to fund research the big companies won't touch, treatments for rare diseases. Affordable alternatives to expensive medications." Isabella ran her hand over the gleaming equipment. "This is incredible. It's also private," Dr. Carter emphasized. "No corporate oversight. No shareholders demanding quarterly profits at the expense of safety. Just pure science." She fixed Isabella with an intense gaze. "Your previous work on cancer treatment protocols was groundbreaking. What would you do if you had the freedom to continue that research your way?" The question awakened something in Isabella that had been dormant since her expulsion, the passionate researcher who had once believed she could change the world. 2 weeks later, Liam and Ava Rossi entered the world in Dr. Carter's clinic, healthy, perfect, and blissfully unaware of the chaos surrounding their birth. No birth announcement appeared in the papers. No proud father paced the waiting room. Just Helen dabbing tears of joy as she held the newborns. And Dr. Carter, who had delivered them herself. "They have his eyes," Helen observed carefully. "Yes," Isabella agreed, studying her son's serious expression and her daughter's curious gaze. "But hopefully my common sense." Recovery from the birth was complicated by emotional exhaustion. But Isabella allowed herself only 2 weeks before returning to Dr. Carter's lab, often with the twins sleeping nearby in a portable crib. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, as Isabella refined her research, focusing on developing a cancer treatment with significantly fewer side effects than Hayes Pharma's flagship drug. When the twins were 8 months old, the breakthrough came. Isabella had created a compound that showed remarkable efficacy against aggressive cancers while maintaining a benign side effect profile. "Dr. she declared, "You need to patent this immediately," Isabella reminded her. "And lawyers." "Which I have," Dr. Carter countered. But more importantly, this discovery deserves to reach patience. It needs a company behind it. Isabella laughed bitterly. What company would work with Ethan Hayes' discarded wife? Dr. Carter gave her a long, measured look. A new one. One you create yourself. The idea seemed preposterous at first. Isabella had no business experience, no industry contacts, and barely enough money to cover diapers for the twins. But Dr. Carter was persistent, eventually revealing that she had been quietly investing in biotech startups for years. I'm prepared to provide seed funding, she told Isabella. My only conditions are that you maintain complete control and that the medications we develop remain affordable. Why would you do this for me? Isabella asked, suspicious of such generosity after months of betrayal. Because 20 years ago, Dr. Carter answered simply. Brilliant, betrayed, and underestimated. The man who did it to me went on to become a pharmaceutical giant. She smiled at the twins, playing on a blanket nearby. Consider it my investment in the next generation. Aurora Biosci was born in Dr. Isabella Winters. Carter's industry contacts proved invaluable. Their first major contract came from ST, which had been struggling with the high cost and concerning side effects of Hayes Pharma's cancer treatments. Aurora offered an effective alternative at half the price, with significantly better patient outcomes. The announcement made a small ripple in industry publications. Newcomer Aurora Biosci, led by scientist Isabella Winters, secures multi-million-dollar contract with St. Jude Medical Network, challenging established players in the oncology medication market. At Hayes Pharma, only when their largest hospital client, City General, announced they were switching suppliers did alarms begin to sound. Marcus Bell stormed into Ethan's office. We just lost City General to some startup called Aurora, so offer them a better deal. Hayes' product doesn't compare. That's impossible. Well, Ethan frowned. The name stirred something in his memory. Very private. Never gives interviews. I want to meet her. Set up a dinner. Marcus's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. I'll try. Especially from larger pharmaceuticals. Ethan replied dismissively, returning to the social calendar on his desk, where Chloe had marked several charity galas they would attend together. Across the city, Hayes Pharma lost another contract today. How unfortunate for them. There's also this. Sliding over a business magazine. On the cover was Ethan with Chloe on his arm at a charity event. Isabella's expression remained neutral as she studied the image of the man who had thrown her out in the night. The man whose children were now quietly drawing pictures, just feet away children he had never bothered to confirm were his despite his initial demand for paternity testing. Mom and Dr. Carter, all holding hands. It's us. Her voice steady despite the emotions swirling within her. She could see the Hayes Pharma Tower illuminated against the night sky. But that had never been her primary goal. Need to dig deeper. Also, wedding date confirmed. May 15th. The exact date. When security had escorted her from her home. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Because while they had been planning a wedding, and more importantly, of deliberately concealed drug side effects, and of the elaborate scheme to frame her for infidelity. Dr. Isabella had resisted for years, protecting the peaceful world she'd created for her children. But seeing the wedding announcement crystallized something within her. It was time for the truth to emerge. All of it. The Hayes estate had never looked more magnificent. Thousands of white roses adorned the garden where 300 guests had gathered to witness the union of Ethan Hayes and Chloe Bell, though they kept their reservations private, serving as best man. Within months of Isabella's removal, established offshore accounts, the music shifted to the bridal march. Chloe appeared at the end of the aisle in a designer gown, the distant sound of helicopter blades. At first, perhaps an elaborate entrance or surprise planned by the groom. But Ethan's expression of confusion quickly shifted to alarm as the black helicopter descended toward the estate's helipad. What's happening? Something about the helicopter seemed oddly familiar. Security personnel moved uncertainly toward the helipad, unsure whether to intervene. Then the door opened, and she stepped out, even from a distance. Her hair was different. Then two small figures emerged from the helicopter behind her, a boy and girl, holding her hands. Oh my God. Richard. Ethan's father stood as well. Ethan's eyes. Security looked to Ethan for direction. What is this? Chloe hissed. Why is she here with those children? His face contorted with rage and fear. Marcus, not unless you want your financial activities made public right now. The twins. Her voice carrying across the now silent gathering. The ones you never knew existed when you threw me out 6 years ago. The collective gasp from the guests was audible. Ethan's mother pressed a hand to her mouth. That's impossible. Chloe snapped. Ethan, tell everyone she's lying. But Ethan couldn't speak. He was staring at the children, at the boy whose serious expression and thoughtful eyes were eerily familiar, at the girl whose determined stance mirrored his own in childhood photographs. DNA tests confirming their paternity have already been filed with the family court. Isabella continued calmly. Security? I wouldn't. Not unless Ace Pharma wants the FDA to receive our complete file on the falsified side effect profiles of Cardianix tonight, instead of next week. Ethan's parents pushed past the security guards to approach the children. Hello, she said softly. Ava studied the older woman carefully before replying. This simple statement, reaching out a tentative hand that Ava accepted with surprising grace. Isabella, how? She replied, keeping her tone measured despite the emotions churning beneath the surface. I try to tell you. Your security guards delivered the message. You said you wanted a paternity test after the birth. Ethan turned to Marcus, confusion and dawning horror on his face. What's she talking about? I never received any message about a pregnancy. Marcus's expression hardened. She's lying. This is obviously some elaborate scheme to what? Or perhaps to inform Ethan that I'm the Isabella Winters he's been trying to meet, the founder of Aurora Biosci, that's been steadily taking his market share for the past 3 years. The revelations landed like physical blows. Ethan staggered back, looking from Marcus to Chloe, then back to Isabella and the children, his children standing calmly amid the chaos they had initiated. This is absurd, Chloe declared, though her voice trembled slightly. Ethan, she's clearly disturbed. We need to have her removed. Actually, came a new voice from the back of the gathering. I think we'll be removing you. MS. Bell. 2 individuals in dark suits approached, displaying federal badges. FBI. We have questions about certain financial transactions between Hayes Pharma and offshore accounts in your name. As the federal agents escorted a protesting Marcus and Chloe away from the ceremony, the wedding guests began to disperse in confused, scandalized groups. Some lingered at a distance, unwilling to miss the dramatic conclusion to what had promised to be a simple society wedding. Ethan approached Isabella and the children slowly, as if in a trance. He knelt before the twins, studying their faces with wonder and devastation. Hello, he said simply, his voice thick with emotion. Liam, always the more cautious twin, partly hid behind his mother's leg. But Ava met her father's gaze directly. You look like your pictures too, she informed him matter-of-factly. But moms are from when you were happier. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I didn't know about you, Isabella suggested, glancing at the remaining onlookers. Ethan nodded numbly. The helicopter is waiting, Isabella added. As they walked toward the helipad, Ethan found himself beside Isabella. Why now? He asked quietly. After 6 years, why choose this moment? Because your parents deserve to know their grandchildren. And because Marcus and Chloe were about to complete their takeover of your company. The timing of the wedding date, the anniversary of when you threw me out merely provided a certain poetic symmetry. In the helicopter, as they flew toward Isabella's home, they were bright and obviously well-raised. The life Isabella had built without him suddenly seemed to materialize in his mind, the birthdays he had missed, the first steps, the nightly bedtime stories, and morning breakfast, 6 years of memories he would never recover. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked quietly. "To my home," Isabella replied. "There are documents you need to see, evidence of what Marcus and Chloe have been doing to your company." And she hesitated. "Things the children want to show you." The helicopter touched down on the rooftop landing pad of a sleek building bearing the Aurora Biosci logo. As they descended to a penthouse apartment, Ethan realized with growing shock the extent of Isabella's success. This wasn't just a company. It was an empire built from nothing in 6 short years. Inside the spacious, warmly decorated penthouse, the twins immediately ran to a shelf displaying their artwork and school achievements. "We want to show you our room," Ava announced, grabbing Ethan's hand with the easy confidence of a child who had never known rejection. Liam followed, more hesitantly, watching his father's reactions carefully. As Ethan was led through the home Isabella had created, each detail revealed another facet of the life that had continued without him. Family photos of holidays and birthdays, evidence of the twins' distinct personalities in their carefully decorated bedroom, bookshelves filled with well-loved stories. In the twins' room, a space divided to reflect their different interests, Ava's half filled with astronomy decorations and science projects. Liam's with books and intricate building sets, then noticed a small box on a shelf labeled Dad. "Can I show him, Mom?" Ava asked as Isabella appeared in the doorway. At Isabella's nod, Ava retrieved the box and opened it to reveal newspaper clippings, photographs, and even the announcement of Ethan and Isabella's wedding from years before. "Mom made this so we would know you," Ava explained as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "She said you were very smart, and that's why we're smart too." Ethan looked up at Isabella in disbelief. Despite everything he had done, or failed to do, she had ensured his children knew him, at least in some capacity. "I'll give you some time with them," Isabella said quietly. "When you're ready, we need to discuss Marcus's activities. Your parents are in the living room." In the stylishly appointed living room, Ethan's parents sat awkwardly on a sofa, still stunned by the day's revelations. Ethan's father, Richard Hayes, a formidable businessman in his own right, looked utterly lost as he accepted a cup of tea from Isabella. "How could we not have known?" he asked, his voice heavy with regret. "Our own grandchildren." "Marcus was very thorough," Isabella replied without bitterness. "He intercepted communications, falsified documents, and ensured Ethan received only the information that served his purposes." "But why?" Ethan's mother asked. "What could he possibly gain?" Isabella opened a laptop on the coffee table. "Control of Hayes Pharma. He and Chloe have been systematically embezzling funds while simultaneously setting Ethan up to take the fall for covering up dangerous side effects of your medications." She turned the screen to show them complex financial records. Once they were married, Chloe would have had access to Ethan's personal accounts and holdings. They planned to complete the transfer of assets within months of the wedding. Richard Hayes studied the documents with growing horror. "These are board-level financial reports." "How did you get these?" "I have sources within Hayes Pharma," Isabella acknowledged. "People who remained loyal to the company's original mission rather than to Marcus's vision." Ethan entered the room, visibly emotional from his time with the children. "They're incredible," he said simply, looking at Isabella with new eyes. "How did you do it? Raise them so well while building a company from nothing?" "I had help," Isabella replied. "Dr. Carter, for one, and an elderly woman named Helen who took me in when I was homeless and pregnant." "Homeless?" Ethan's mother repeated, aghast. Yes, Isabella confirmed, her tone clinical rather than accusatory. When Ethan ordered me removed from our home, my accounts were frozen, my credit cards canceled, and my reputation destroyed. I slept in my car for 2 weeks before Helen found me vomiting in a parking lot from morning sickness. The stark reality of what Isabella had endured hit Ethan like a physical blow. I never knew. Marcus told me you'd moved in with your lover. There was only me, pregnant with your children, trying to survive while Marcus calculatedly destroyed everything we had built together. Ethan sank into a chair, head in his hands. The evidence seemed so conclusive. The texts, the watch, even witness accounts, all fabricated. Isabella confirmed. Marcus hired someone to create fake text messages. The watch and hotel key were planted. The witnesses were paid. She opened another file on her laptop. This is the payment record from Marcus's private account to the man who posed as my imaginary lover. And this, she continued, turning to another document, is the restraining order supposedly filed by you that prevented me from approaching you about my pregnancy. Ethan stared at the document in horror. I never filed this. I would never. Marcus forged your signature. Isabella explained. Just as he did on numerous company documents authorizing the release of medications despite concerning test results. As the full extent of Marcus and Chloe's betrayal became clear, Ethan appeared to physically age before their eyes. His parents looked equally devastated, particularly his mother, who kept glancing toward the hallway where laughter could occasionally be heard from the twins' room. Why didn't you expose them sooner? Richard finally asked. With evidence this comprehensive, you could have cleared your name years ago. Isabella considered her answer carefully. At first, survival was my only concern. Then, protecting the twins became paramount. By the time Aurora was established enough for me to consider confrontation, I had to weigh the impact on innocent Hayes pharma employees and patients. She met Ethan's gaze directly. Despite everything, I never wanted to destroy the company or harm those who depended on it. Ethan looked at her with new understanding. So instead, you built a competing company with better products and ethical practices, gradually transferring patients to safer medications while gathering evidence against Marcus. Yes, Isabella acknowledged. Aurora wasn't built solely for revenge. Ethan, it was built because I saw how Marcus was corrupting your company's mission we once shared of helping people. A soft knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Dr. Carter entered, carrying a tablet. The FBI has taken Marcus and Chloe into custody, she reported, and the preliminary filing with the SEC has been completed. Hayes Pharma stock trading will likely be suspended pending investigation. Ethan paled. The company will collapse. Not necessarily, Isabella replied. I've prepared a proposal for consideration. She retrieved a folder from her desk and handed it to Ethan. A merger between Aurora and Hayes. It would preserve jobs, maintain patient access to medications, and allow for an orderly transition while the legal issues are addressed. Ethan opened the folder with trembling hands, scanning the detailed proposal with growing amazement. You've prepared for every contingency, he murmured. I've had 6 years to consider the possibilities, Isabella replied simply. As Ethan and his parents reviewed the proposal, Isabella stepped into the hallway with Dr. Carter, are you certain about this? Dr. Carter asked quietly. After everything he did, Isabella watched through the doorway as Ethan studied the document that could save his family's legacy. This isn't about Ethan, she replied. It's about the twins having a relationship with their father and grandparents. It's about preserving jobs and continuing to help patients. Dr. Carter smiled knowingly. And it has nothing to do with finally showing him exactly what he lost when he chose to believe Marcus over you. For the first time that day, Isabella's composed expression cracked slightly, revealing a glimpse of the pain she still carried. Perhaps there's some satisfaction in that, she admitted. But revenge was never my primary motivation. No. Dr. Carter agreed, squeezing her friend's hand. That's why you succeeded where Marcus failed. He was driven by greed and resentment. You were driven by something far more powerful, the determination to create something good from something terrible. The twins appeared in the hallway, their initial excitement giving way to uncertainty as the day's events began to overwhelm them. Mom, Liam asked quietly, is he really staying for dinner? Isabella knelt to her son's level. Your father and your grandparents would like to have dinner with us. Yes. Is that okay with you? Liam considered this seriously. Does this mean we have to call him Dad now? No. Sweetheart, Isabella assured him. You can call him whatever makes you comfortable. This is all very new, and everyone understands that. Ava, ever practical, had a different concern. Will they come to our birthday party next month? We're having a space theme, and Grandma Helen is making the cake. The simple question, reflecting a child's straightforward priorities, shifted the heavy atmosphere. Isabella smiled genuinely for the first time since the helicopter landing. That's something we could discuss over dinner, she replied. For now, why don't you both wash up while I check on our guests? As the children scampered off, Isabella returned to the living room, where Ethan and his parents were engaged in intense discussion. They fell silent as she entered. The twins would like to know if you're staying for dinner, she announced, and Ava has already advanced the questions about birthday party attendance next month. Ethan looked up, his eyes red-rimmed, but filled with determination. I'd like that. The dinner. And, if you'll allow it, the birthday party too. We understand if it's too soon. His mother added hastily. We've missed so much already, but we don't want to overwhelm them. Isabella studied them, the family that had once been hers. Now strangers connected by blood to her precious children. Dinner is a good place to start, she decided. As for the future, that depends on many factors. The twins' comfort is my priority. As it should be, Richard agreed firmly. We failed them. And you, terribly. Whatever boundaries you set, we'll respect. Helen arrived shortly after, bringing the dessert she had promised the twins. Her introduction to the Hayes family was awkward, but warmed quickly when Ethan thanked her, his voice breaking, for taking in Isabella when no one else would. Someone had to show some common sense. Helen replied bluntly, Lucky for all of you. I'm too old to care about pharmaceutical politics and too stubborn to be intimidated by wealthy fools. The dinner that followed was surreal, the blending of two worlds that had existed in parallel for 6 years. The twins, adaptable as children often are, seemed to accept the sudden appearance of grandparents with remarkable ease. Ethan, however, watched his children with an expression of wonder mixed with profound loss, acutely aware of every reference to events he had missed. As Helen and the elder Hayes helped the twins prepare for bed, the grandparents forming an unlikely alliance in their shared desire to connect with the children, Ethan and Isabella found themselves alone in her study. I don't know how to thank you, Ethan said finally, not just for the merger proposal, but for, he gestured helplessly, for making sure they knew who I was, even when you had every reason to erase me from their lives. They deserved to know their heritage. Isabella replied simply. My issues with you didn't change that fact. Ethan studied her face. The woman he had once loved so completely. Now a stranger who had built an extraordinary life without him. And what happens now? Beyond the merger? Beyond the legal proceedings against Marcus and Chloe? Now, you get to know your children. Isabella answered slowly. On their terms. And mine. You've missed 6 years. Ethan, that can't be recovered overnight. And us? He asked hesitantly. Is there any possibility that no? Isabella interrupted firmly. That part of our story, into the night, you chose to believe Marcus over me. I built a life I'm proud of. Ethan, the twins and I are happy. Ethan nodded, accepting her answer with a resigned dignity that would have been impossible for the younger man who had cast her out so rashly. I understand. I need you to know how deeply I regret what happened. If I could go back. We can't go back, Isabella said, more gently. We can only go forward. For the twins' sake. I hope we can build a civil relationship. But romantic reconciliation isn't possible. Too much has changed. As Ethan absorbed this definitive statement, a soft knock came to the study door. Dr. Carter entered with a tablet. Sorry to interrupt, but you should see this. The news about Marcus and Chloe's arrest has broken. Hayes Pharma's board is calling an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Ethan grimaced. I should go. I need to prepare for the fallout. The merger proposal could stabilize things if presented promptly, Isabella suggested. Your parents have copies. Perhaps they could attend with you while I handle the twins' morning routine. The simple domestic referenced the morning routine she had managed alone for 6 years hung between them, highlighting everything Ethan had lost through his rash judgment and misplaced trust. Thank you, he said finally, for the proposal. For dinner. For everything. He hesitated. Would it be appropriate to say good night to the twins? Isabella nodded. They're probably still awake. Ava rarely falls asleep before extracting at least 3 bedtime stories. A ghost of a smile crossed Ethan's face. She's persistent. Like her mother. Yes, Isabella agreed, leading him toward the children's room. Though her negotiation tactics come entirely from your side of the family. The conference room at Hayes Pharma hummed with tension as board members assembled for the emergency meeting. News of Marcus and Chloe's arrests had spread rapidly through financial circles, and the company's stock had been suspended from trading pending investigation. Ethan sat at the head of the table, his father beside him, both men looking exhausted but resolute. The board members, many longtime family friends, appeared shell-shocked by the revelations about Marcus's activities. The situation is grave, but not unsalvageable. Ethan began, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. With your permission, I'd like to present a proposed path forward. For the next hour, Ethan outlined the merger proposal Isabella had prepared. The board listened with increasing interest as he explained how combining Aurora's innovative research with Hayes's established infrastructure could preserve jobs, maintain patient access to medications, and position the combined entity as an industry leader. This Isabella Winters, one board member said skeptically. She's willing to merge her successful company with ours during a crisis of this magnitude? What's her motivation? Ethan and his father exchanged glances. There's something else you should know, Ethan admitted. Isabella Winters is Isabella Rossi, my former wife. The shocked murmurs around the table reflected the bombshell nature of this revelation. The woman Marcus Bell claimed was unfaithful, an older board member clarified. The one who disappeared 6 years ago? Yes, Ethan confirmed. Marcus fabricated evidence against her to conceal his own financial crimes. She was innocent of all accusations. And she's now our primary competitor? Another asked incredulously. She is, Ethan acknowledged. She's also the mother of my 6-year-old twins, whom I met for the first time yesterday. The stunned silence that followed was finally broken by the company's longest-serving board member, Margaret Chun. That's not what I meant, Isabella clarified. I meant for you. Personally. You were deceived by people you trusted implicitly. That isn't something one simply moves past. Ethan considered her question seriously. I've started therapy, he admitted. Something I should have done years ago. After my brother's death, Marcus exploited my grief and insecurities masterfully. He met her gaze. I'm not the same man who threw you out. Isabella, I can't change what I did, but I can ensure I never make that kind of mistake again. Isabella nodded, accepting his answer without comment. The merger announcement made headlines across business publications. Aurora and Hayes Pharma announce historic merger. CEO Isabella Winters revealed as Ethan Hayes' ex-wife in stunning corporate and personal reconciliation. The personal aspect of a story, the wronged wife returning triumphantly with hidden children and a superior, company-captured public imagination. Interview requests flooded in, which Isabella politely but firmly declined. This isn't a tabloid drama, she told her PR team. It's a business merger with personal elements that aren't for public consumption. As the weeks passed, Ethan's relationship with the twins gradually deepened. Liam began to lower his guard, especially after discovering his father's extensive library and shared interest in geology. Ava simply adopted Ethan as if he had always been present, matter-of-factly incorporating him into her expansive worldview. The twins' upcoming 7th birthday became a focal point. Ethan, eager to make the occasion memorable, consulted repeatedly with Isabella about appropriate gifts and arrangements. Nothing extravagant, she cautioned. They don't need to be showered with expensive presents to make up for lost time. I know, Ethan assured her, but I'd like to contribute something meaningful to the space theme Ava requested. The day before the birthday celebration, Ethan appeared at Isabella's penthouse with Dr. Carter, who had become an unexpected ally in helping him navigate his new relationship with his children. We have a proposal, Dr. Carter announced. For the birthday party. Isabella raised an eyebrow. I thought everything was arranged. Helen's making the cake. The decorations are ready. And the planetarium visit is booked for tomorrow morning. This would be an addition, Ethan explained. With your approval, of course. He outlined his idea. A professional observatory had agreed to a private evening viewing session following the planetarium visit. The twins and their friends would have access to powerful telescopes during an unusually clear night when several planets would be visible. That's actually perfect, Isabella acknowledged. Ava will be ecstatic. And for Liam, Ethan continued, more hesitantly, I've arranged for a geologist from the Natural History Museum to bring several rare specimens for him to examine, including, he added with a small smile, a fragment of the meteorite that created Barringer Crater. Isabella looked at him with new appreciation. You've been paying attention to their interests. Of course, Ethan replied simply. They're extraordinary children. Getting to know them has been the greatest privilege of my life. The birthday celebration unfolded perfectly. The twins, surrounded by friends from school and both sides of their unusual family, blossomed under the attention. Helen and Ethan's mother had formed an unexpected alliance, coordinating decorations and food with military precision. Richard Hayes, initially awkward around children, had found his niche helping Liam organize his growing rock collection. At the observatory that evening, after the other children had been collected by their parents, the core family group remained. Ava moved from telescope to telescope with boundless enthusiasm, while Liam carefully logged his observations in a notebook Ethan had given him. As the children were occupied with Dr. Carter and the elder Hayes, Ethan found himself standing beside Isabella at the observatory railing, looking out over the city lights. Thank you, he said quietly, for allowing me to be part of today. Isabella nodded, her expression softening in the dim light. You did well. The observatory was the perfect gift. I meant what I said before. Ethan continued carefully. Getting to know them, even with all the years I've missed, is the greatest gift I could have received. Isabella turned to study him. The man she had once loved completely. Now a different person shaped by loss and revelation. You've changed, she observed. I had to, Ethan replied simply. The man I was 6 years ago lost everything that mattered because he couldn't see what was right in front of him. Not everything, Isabella corrected, glancing toward the twins. They're still yours, in the ways that matter most. Because of you, Ethan acknowledged. Because despite everything, you made sure they knew who I was. A comfortable silence fell between them. not the intimacy of their former relationship, but something Newa shared appreciation for the extraordinary children they had created and the complex path that had led them to this moment. Mom! Dad! Ava called excitedly, the parental designations now coming naturally to her. They found Saturn's rings. Come see. As they moved to join their children, Ethan paused. Isabella, I know we can never go back to what we were, and I've accepted that. But I want you to know that I'm grateful for this second chance to be in their lives, and even if only as a co-parent and business partner. Isabella considered his words carefully. Life rarely gives us what we expect. Ethan, sometimes it takes away what we thought we couldn't live without, only to replace it with something we never imagined possible. As the twins excitedly called for them again, she added, let's focus on giving them the stable, loving family they deserve, whatever form that takes. 1 year after the dramatic wedding interruption, the twins' 8th birthday arrived with considerably less drama, but far more joy. Aurora Hayes Pharma had not only survived the merger, but thrived. Combining Isabella's innovative research approaches with Hayes's established infrastructure, the company had become an industry leader in ethical practices, transparent testing, and affordable medication pricing. The birthday celebration was held at Ethan's new home, a comfortable but not ostentatious house with a sprawling garden perfect for the dinosaur theme party Liam had requested. His interest had shifted from rocks to paleontology in recent months. Isabella arrived early to help with preparations, bringing Helen and Dr. Carter, who had become fixtures in the twins' expanded family circle. Ethan's parents were already there, Richard carefully assembling a realistic volcano that would erupt safely during the party, while his wife arranged prehistoric-looking plants around the garden. Everything looks amazing, Isabella commented, surveying the transformed backyard. The children will love it. I hope so, Ethan replied, emerging from the house with trays of fossil-shaped cookies. Liam was very specific about scientific accuracy. He gets that from both of us, Isabella observed with a smile. Their relationship had evolved over the past year into a comfortable co-parenting arrangement. The initial tension had gradually given way to mutual respect as they navigated both their corporate merger and their shared responsibility for the twins. The children had adapted to their new family structure with remarkable resilience. They now spent 3 nights a week at Ethan's home, with the remaining time at Isabella's penthouse. Far from being confused by the arrangement, they seemed to thrive on having both parents actively involved in their lives. As guests began to arrive, school friends, colleagues from both companies, and the unconventional extended family they had assembled, Isabella found herself watching Ethan interact with the children. His transformation over the past year had been remarkable. The ambitious, sometimes arrogant pharmaceutical heir had been replaced by a thoughtful, patient father who prioritized his children above all else. He's done well, Dr. Carter observed, joining Isabella at the edge of the garden. Better than I expected, if I'm being honest. Yes, Isabella agreed. The twins adore him. And you? Dr. Carter asked carefully. How are you feeling about everything? It can't be easy watching him integrate so seamlessly into the life you built without him. Isabella considered the question. Actually, it's been easier than I anticipated. Ethan isn't trying to take over or change what already works. He's simply adding himself to the equation in ways that benefit the children. And in ways that benefit you? Dr. Carter pressed gently. Having a co-parent after 6 years of doing everything alone must be some relief. It is, Isabella acknowledged. Though I sometimes feel guilty about that. After everything that happened, should I be allowing him to make my life easier? Dr. Carter smiled knowingly. Car tu as raison. Over the past year, as a pediatric surgeon who had initially treated Liam for a minor sports injury, he had formed a natural bond with both children. He apologized, greeting Isabella with a warm smile. Emergency surgery ran long. Isabella assured him. The volcano eruption isn't scheduled for another 30 minutes. As David moved to greet the twins, who received him with obvious affection, Dr. Carter gave Isabella a meaningful look. He canceled a conference in San Diego to be here today. She mentioned casually. So the twins' birthday was more important. Isabella felt a flush of warmth at this information. Her friendship with David had been developing gradually, but neither had taken steps to define it as anything more. He's good with them, Isabella observed neutrally. Though her expression softened as she watched David help Liam adjust his paleontologist costume. The party proceeded perfectly, with the volcano eruption serving as the dramatic highlight. Liam and Ava, surrounded by friends and their unusual extended family, beamed with happiness as they blew out the candles on their dinosaur cake. As the celebration began to wind down, Ethan approached Isabella with 2 glasses of champagne. A toast, he suggested, to our extraordinary children. Isabella accepted the glass. To Liam and Ava, may they always be this happy. They sipped in companionable silence, watching as the twins excitedly showed their friends the real fossil specimens Ethan had obtained from the museum. I've been meaning to tell you, Ethan said after a moment. The investigation into Marcus and Chloe's activities is finally complete. Their sentencing is next month. Isabella nodded. The legal proceedings had been extensive, uncovering even more widespread fraud than initially suspected. Have they offered any explanation for why they did it? Why they targeted me specifically? Marcus finally admitted that he recognized you were close to discovering irregularities in the research data. Ethan explained. He knew your scientific thoroughness would eventually expose the corners he was cutting. Removing you was self-preservation. And Chloe? Ethan's expression hardened slightly. Apparently, she always resented our relationship. She saw Marcus's scheme as an opportunity to get what she'd wanted since university, wealth and status as a haze. Isabella absorbed this information thoughtfully. It's strange to think how differently everything might have unfolded if you had simply listened to me that night. I know, Ethan acknowledged, regret evident in his voice. Not a day passes that I don't think about that. If I could change any one moment in my life, it would be that one. And yet, Isabella mused, watching the joyful chaos of their children's birthday party. Would you want to change it? I mean, Aurora wouldn't exist. Your parents wouldn't have Helen terrifying them with her brutally honest opinions. She smiled slightly. Dr. Carter and I wouldn't have revolutionized cancer treatment protocols. A silver lining to my catastrophic mistake? Ethan suggested with a self-deprecating smile. Perhaps, Isabella allowed, though the cost was tremendous. Their conversation was interrupted by David, who approached with an apologetic expression. Sorry to interrupt, but Liam is insisting that only a medical doctor can properly examine his new fossil collection for scientific accuracy. Apparently, my credentials as a surgeon qualify me for this honor. Ethan laughed. You'd better not keep him waiting. He takes his fossils very seriously. As David moved away, Ethan glanced between him and Isabella with knowing eyes. He's a good man, he observed neutrally. Yes, Isabella agreed simply. The twins are comfortable with him. Victor continued carefully. They mentioned he takes them hiking on Saturdays sometimes. He does, Isabella confirmed. He's been a good friend. Ethan studied her expression. Just a friend? Isabella met his gaze directly. We're taking things very slowly. The children are my priority. As they should be, Ethan agreed. But, Isabella, if he makes you happy, don't let the past hour past stand in the way of that. The simple sincerity of his statement touched Isabella unexpectedly. This was another sign of how much Ethan had changed the ability to genuinely wish for her happiness, even with someone else. Later that evening, After the last guest had departed and the twins were asleep in their rooms at Ethan's house, the adults gathered on the patio. Helen and the elder Hayes were engaged in lively debate about educational approaches, while Dr. Carter shared stories from her early research days. David sat beside Isabella, their hands occasionally brushing in a way that suggested growing comfort with small intimacies. Ethan, noticing this, smiled to himself before turning his attention back to the conversation. As midnight approached, Helen announced it was time for her to depart, prompting a general movement to conclude the evening. The twins would stay with Ethan until morning, following their established routine. "I'll walk you out," David offered as Isabella gathered her things. At the front door, away from the others, he hesitated. "I've been meaning to ask you something." Isabella looked at him expectantly. "There's a medical conference in Vienna next month," he explained. 3 days. "I thought, perhaps, you might consider joining me. We could extend it to a week. See the city." The invitation hung between them, not just an offer of travel, but a step toward defining their relationship more clearly. "I need to check with Ethan about the twins," Isabella began cautiously. "Already did," David admitted with a sheepish smile. "He assured me he could adjust his schedule to have them that week." Dr. Carter volunteered to help too. Isabella raised an eyebrow. "You've been planning this." "Hoping," David corrected gently. "I know how important the children are to you. I wouldn't suggest anything that complicated their lives." The care behind his consideration, not just for her, but for the entire complex family she had built, touched Isabella deeply. "Vienna sounds wonderful," she said finally, allowing herself to accept the possibility of personal happiness that had nothing to do with revenge or redemption. The following morning, Ethan prepared breakfast as the twins energetically recounted their favorite parts of the party. Isabella arrived to collect them, accompanied by David, who had offered to drive them to their weekend science club. As the adults supervised breakfast cleanup, an unexpected moment of harmony settled over the kitchen. Ethan and David discussing the twins' educational interests. Isabella organizing the week's schedule, all operating with the comfortable rhythm of people who had found a way to put the children's needs above all else. When the twins ran off to collect their science projects, Ethan took the opportunity to speak privately with Isabella. "I wanted to thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Isabella asked, genuinely puzzled. "For allowing me to be part of their lives," Ethan explained. "For not letting bitterness consume you when you had every right to it." Isabella considered his words carefully. "Do you know what the real secret was? The one that ultimately ruined you?" Ethan waited, curious. "It wasn't the twins," she continued. "It wasn't Aurora Biosci or exposing Marcus's schemes. It was showing you that redemption was possible, but forgiveness had to be earned. Every day. The man who threw me out that night would never have understood that. The man standing before me now does." Ethan nodded slowly, accepting both the assessment and the implicit acknowledgement that he had indeed changed. "Mom, we're ready. Are you happy?" "Truly?" Who was helping Liam adjust his dinosaur diorama, who had raised extraordinary children alone. She answered honestly, but perhaps in a better way than I could have planned. He said seriously, "We forgot something important." "What is it?" "Sweetheart, our family photo," pointing to the camera still sitting on the entry table from yesterday's party. "We're supposed to take one after every birthday. It's our tradition." It was Ava who solved the practical problem. "We need the timer." Everyone, by the garden wall. They assembled as directed, Ethan and Isabella with the twins between them. The camera flashed. As Isabella reviewed work documents while the twins completed homework at her dining table, he had sent the family photo, but perhaps better than what we planned. "Thank you for showing me that the most powerful revenge wasn't destruction, but creation." Isabella studied the image. Her children's joyful faces surrounded by the unusual extended family they had assembled. Ethan was right. The revenge she had ultimately taken wasn't destroying him or his company. It was creating something so extraordinary from the ashes of betrayal that it transformed everyone it touched, including, most surprisingly, herself. What would you have done in Isabella's position? Would you have chosen revenge, reconciliation, or something entirely different? The choices we make in our darkest moments often reveal our true character more than our actions in times of happiness. If you enjoyed this story of resilience, redemption, and the complex nature of forgiveness, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that like button. In the comments below, we'd love to hear your thoughts on what aspect of Isabella's journey resonated most with you. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next story. Until next time, thank you for listening.